It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. A rare red warning of a danger to life as Storm Darragh bears down on the UK. NATO member Romania cancels round one of its presidential election amid allegations Russia boosted the far-right outsider who won it. Syrian rebels vow to press on to Damascus as they make further gains against government forces. Police in New York say they believe the suspect in the killing of a healthcare boss has fled the city. And the Princess of Wales joins her family to host a Christmas service as she continues her return to public duties. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in the press preview from 10:30 right through till midnight. Hello there, a very good evening. A rare red warning of a danger to life has been issued ahead of the arrival of Storm Darragh in the UK. Millions of people in the storm's path have been texted tonight by the government, urging them to make preparations. It's predicted to be the most dangerous weather system to hit the country in more than 2 years. Well, the red warning covers parts of Wales and the southwest of England and will be in place from 3 a.m. until 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour are expected. A separate amber warning is in place, stretching from southern Scotland all the way down to Cornwall. And a yellow warning is in place for virtually all other areas. Sky's Charlotte Leeming reports now from Bangor in North Wales on how people there are preparing for Storm Darragh.
A city on weather watch. Bangor is bracing itself for Storm Darragh. The Met Office has issued a rare red warning, its most serious type, when there's potential for dangerous, life-threatening weather conditions. It covers Wales and parts of southwest England.
It's likely to be the most dangerous storm for some parts of the UK, specifically towards the southwest and parts of Wales, since Storm Eunice back in February 2022. There'll be multiple impacts, there'll be multiple causes of disruption, but this is a dangerous storm, and the advice is to avoid travelling, especially if you're in the amber or red warning areas, and to tie down any loose structures that surround your house and your properties.
It feels like the calm before the storm here in Bangor. This Victorian pier is extremely exposed to the elements, and with winds expected of up to 90 miles per hour, the businesses dotted along this pier will be shutting up shop until that storm passes. At the Pavilion Cafe, they've battened down the hatches, a routine that's becoming a regular occurrence.
When I first got the place, I've had the place for 6 years, and we didn't have to close any days at all due to bad weather, but this year we had to close for a few days even in the summer months, because there were storms in the summer months. And if you think about, they're just becoming more frequent and happening more times of year. So I think it's definitely getting worse.
Thousands were also due to attend a Christmas concert at the pier. It's been months in the planning, but the decision to call it off didn't take long.
It was awful having to make the decision, because we worked for months putting it together, and everybody was so excited about it. And I'm just glad, really. The forecast was so bad, we didn't have a choice.
Communities under red alert are preparing themselves for a battering, and the advice from the Met Office is for people to stay indoors and stay safe. Charlotte Leeming, Sky News, Bangor.
Well, in a moment, we'll go live to Sky's Alice Porter on the preparations being made in Portishead near Bristol. But first, let's bring in our correspondent, Stephen Murphy. He's in Galway on Ireland's west coast, where Storm Darragh is already making landfall. Stephen.
Yeah, that's right. We've been in a red alert here in County Galway for just over an hour now. That came into effect for 3 counties at 9 o'clock. And it's a pretty nasty, filthy, dirty night here in County Galway on the west coast of Ireland. It's pretty gusty. But speaking to people here in the town, in the city so far tonight, they feel that it hasn't fully hit here just yet, even though we're in that warning for the past hour. But things can change very quickly. And we're hearing reports in County Mayo, which is just just north of here, that things went from calm to very crazy just about half an hour ago. And we know that there are several power cuts in Kerry, that's in the southwest here in Ireland, with maybe up to thousands of people already without power as branches come down. The Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris, has warned people this evening to take this storm extraordinarily seriously, with a particular message to Friday night party goers. We're into the festive season now, and the mayor here in Galway City has also urged particularly younger people to give a second thought to venturing out into the evening tonight. Now, I can tell you from being around the city that not many people are paying that much attention, but certainly at the moment, for a red wind alert situation, it hasn't hit as badly as people have expected here so far in Galway. But of course, there's still a long way to go and things can change very rapidly.
OK, Stephen, thank you very much. Let's look now at how the storm is predicted to affect the UK. We can go live to Portishead near Bristol. Alice Porter is there for us. Are people concerned, Alice, or taking it in their stride so far?
Well, people are taking it very much in their stride because they have very much been alerted. Around 3 million people around parts of Wales and the southwest of England received an emergency alert on their mobile phone. It was a siren noise, and a message came up warning them of the risk of high winds that are coming in tomorrow. Now, this is the largest use of the emergency alert system that we've seen so far. So it really shows just how seriously the government is taking this red warning that comes from the Met Office. Now, that comes into effect tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. And the reason why there is this red warning is because of the threat to life and the worry about falling debris and falling trees. And as a result of that, there have been significant preparations in this area along the southwest and in parts of the southwest in England around Bristol because of the concern of any falling debris. And there have been cancellations in Wales of all football and all rugby games because of the concern. And we've also been hearing from Network Rail. They're saying that there's going to be severe disruption in many parts of the UK over the weekend, particularly in areas where there is that red, amber or yellow weather warning.
OK, Alice in Portishead, thank you very much. And, of course, we'll be monitoring the progress of Storm Darragh over the weekend here on Sky News. The top court in NATO member Romania has cancelled the results of the first round of the country's presidential election over allegations of Russian interference. It follows a decision by the country's current leader to declassify documents which claim that Russia was behind a campaign to promote the far-right candidate, Carlin Georgescu. Our Europe correspondent, Adam Parsons, reports from the Romanian capital, Bucharest.
Romania's vast parliament building lit up in the darkness. The decision of the court here echoed around the world, cancelling an election because of alleged interference by Russia. Authorities here believe Moscow amplified the social media campaign of populist Carlin Georgescu, who rose from obscurity to become the favourite for the presidency. He says he's now the victim of a coup d'etat. But these documents from the Secret Service allege he was backed by Russia, something he denied when we spoke just 24 hours before the election was called off. And even then, Georgescu claimed the state was trying to block him.
They asked and they met for one purpose, to eliminate one of the candidates. I mean, you know, how many problems has Romania today? And they are doing this meeting just for this purpose, which is incredible. I mean, what is the democracy?
His rival also condemning the decision, saying it failed the democracy Romania had built since the fall of communism in 1989.
I strongly condemn what happened today. I think they destroyed everything we have worked so hard to achieve in the last 35 years.
The election won't be rerun until next year, but nobody knows when. The decision of the Constitutional Court here is a seismic, unprecedented moment for Romania, but it will resonate with the wider world because this is a member state of NATO, claiming that it's been attacked, that its democracy has been undermined, and naming Russia as the aggressor. In other countries, people have alleged interference. In Georgia, protesters say their government is now propped up by Russia. But an attack on Romania is an even more inflammatory claim.
Russia attacks Romania in the hybrid war, unprecedented hybrid war. And I said it's about the war on idea. They want to change the system of value. And I said after the parliamentary election, they win. In this war, Russia win.
In front of the court building, there is a cheery air to go with the freezing temperatures, but this is a country facing political turmoil. However festive you might feel, the spectre of Russian aggression brings back bad memories here.
And Adam joins us live from Bucharest. This turn of events are really quite remarkable, Adam, and as you've been highlighting, a real concern not only for NATO and the EU, but for the whole of the West.
Yeah, and I think those ripple effects are going to play out over the coming few days. But I think one thing to say is that what you sense is a difference in reaction, because outside Romania, there seems to be a kind of chorus that largely agrees that the court's done the right thing, that this was a malign effort by Russia, and a pattern of interference that recently has taken in Moldova, Georgia, and now this election. And I think sources around EU countries have all said, yeah, that something had to be done, that Russia had to be pushed back. But when you come into here in Romania, then the reaction is very different. Only one party so far has come out and said that it supports the court decision. And as you've heard, both of these candidates said that they think it was completely the wrong thing to do, even though they come from different ends of the political spectrum. So what's going on? Well, I think you're seeing a polarising of opinion. On the one hand, those who absolutely believe that this is an indication of a concerted effort by Russia to launch a cyber attack, something that NATO has been worrying about. I understand that in recent weeks, NATO has actually initiated a new strategy about cyber. On the other side are those who believe that this is evidence that the political establishment is fearful of insurgent politics, that they're worried about this nationalist Georgescu and are doing everything they can to stop him. And that idea, even if it's not true, is feeding into that echo chamber, which may well result in Mr. Georgescu becoming ever more popular. The simple fact is that we are now in this world of unexpected consequences and chaos political theory. Sum it up, we've had a big story today. What happens next? Simply nobody knows.
OK, Adam, for now, in Bucharest, thank you. Next to Syria, where rebels are continuing to make gains against the forces of President Assad. The militants have captured 2 major cities and say tonight that they're on the outskirts of a third. Well, Syria is now split between 3 factions. The rebels, led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, President Bashar al-Assad's forces and Kurdish-led troops to the north. The rebels began their offensive from the province of Idlib, which for years had been the last anti-regime stronghold in Syria. They moved west into Aleppo, Syria's second city, taking it in just 3 days. And then yesterday, they dealt another blow to Assad's regime as they pushed south into the city of Hama. Now the rebels are advancing towards the city of Homs, taking the towns of Rastan, Talbise and Termila. If the rebels do take Homs, they'll then set their sights on Damascus, President Assad's seat of power, as our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle now reports.
Syria's opposition forces are pushing on, and the government doesn't seem able to stop them. They captured the city of Hama on Thursday, and they're now pushing south to the next target, Homs. Praise be to God, this fighter repeats as they cross a major river on the way. They have momentum and are determined to keep advancing.
God is great. It's an indescribable feeling here in the city of Hama. What we've experienced from the people is beyond words.
Some civilians, fearing that the regime will fight back hard, are leaving for safer areas closer to the Turkish border. But most are celebrating the liberation as confidence is growing that decades of harsh Assad family rule might be nearing an end.
Thank God. It's been 45 years of us waiting for this moment, and for years at the beginning of the revolution we waited for this moment. Thank God. With the determination and the courage of the heroic fighters and of the free people of Syria, we have been liberated.
Some families, separated by years of civil war, are now being reunited. But there are celebrations and a lot of uncertainty. The situation is evolving rapidly. Syria is very unstable, and what comes next is unknown. Long rebel convoys are moving further south. This was the town of Talbise on the road to Homs, another major city in the rebels' sights. The Syrian government army is nowhere to be seen, and the rebels are welcomed as liberators. The country's defense minister has accused foreign countries of helping the rebels and insists his soldiers are fighting back.
With the courage of our armed forces, today we're fighting a fierce, ongoing battle with the most powerful terrorist organisations. They're supported by regional and international countries that have become well known in providing them with military and logistical support.
Attempts to halt the advance and push the rebels back is largely coming from the air. Russian jets, supporters of Assad's regime, carried out airstrikes on Termala earlier today. But the outskirts of Homs is barely a few miles from this town. If Homs falls, then the road to Damascus will open up. President Assad's grip on Syria is being loosened by the day. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News.
The New York Police Commissioner has said tonight that she believes the suspect in the killing of a healthcare boss has fled the city. Investigators have been poring over surveillance footage since Brian Thompson was shot dead in a dawn ambush outside a Manhattan hotel on Wednesday. Let's speak to our international correspondent Diana Magnay in the States. Diana, has the trail gone cold, do you think?
Not necessarily, but they do know that they've got video of him going into the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan and no video of him coming out. So they believe he is on one of those buses, but it's a very busy bus terminal, so there's quite a lot of work still to be done. And as you say, it does make it a lot more difficult if he's left to comb the whole country rather than just New York City. But New York City in itself is very difficult, and they do have a huge amount of information. They say they have a huge amount of evidence, forensic, DNA, fingerprints. They have this burner phone that he threw away. We don't know whether they've managed to get into that, whether it's an encrypted iPhone or whether they haven't. They also are looking for his backpack, which he left in Central Park, because they've pieced together the surveillance footage to show the route that he took, which was after he shot Brian Thompson. He got on this bike, rode up to Central Park, rode through the park and out the other side, then got a taxi and took the taxi to the bus terminal and left then. And the police commissioner has described that picture where you actually see him unmasked as the money shot. Interestingly, he only pulled his mask down then because he was flirting with the woman behind the desk in the hostel that he was checking into. We'll have to see whether that money shot does actually end up bringing him in. It's certainly what the police are hoping will be spread far and wide across the country so that everybody is on the lookout for a man who looks like him.
Diana, in the US, thank you. Now, back here, campaigners are calling for new laws to stop the use of artificial intelligence to create what are known as deepfake nudes. Apps allow users to doctor photographs of anyone to generate sexually explicit images. But while sharing such images may be illegal, creating them is not. The law is due to change next year, but victims are calling for the legislation to be introduced immediately. A warning that this report from our home editor, Jason Farrell, contains content some may find distressing.
Right, everyone, so a lot of you have asked about this.
Social media influencer Callie Jane Beach was horrified when she discovered that someone had used AI to turn this underwear brand photograph into a nude.
Just the underwear's missing completely.
And it was being shared online.
Still live, still active. This looked so realistic, like nobody but me would know.
The app that did this still exists.
Explains exactly how to do it. How do I generate images? Choose a mode, upload your image, click undress. Undress them.
When she reported it to the police, Callie struggled to get them to treat it as a crime.
Because I said, can't you just shut the site down? It's not just me that's on that site. They just said that they didn't have that jurisdiction. This shouldn't be a thing. It's not a colouring book. Do you know what I mean? It's not a bit of fun. It's like people's identity and stripping their clothes. That's disgraceful.
This can happen to anyone, but it's nearly always women. What's more, a recent survey by Internet Matters found 13% of teenagers have had an experience with nude deepfakes.
One of the largest, most notorious websites dedicated to this abuse receives about 14 million hits a month. We've normalised the use of these nudify apps.
Jodie, who we're not identifying, was tipped off by an anonymous email that she appeared to be in sex videos on a pornographic website. Someone was posting normal pictures of Jodie, asking others to manipulate them. Then she found a particular photograph the culprit had posted.
Yeah, and it was taken just here, and I recognised it because it was a very happy day.
It was her best friend, Alex Wolfe.
No one else could have had it, and I'd airdropped it to him. It was one of the pieces of the puzzle that led me to him.
Wolfe, who once won BBC Young Composer of the Year, was later convicted, but only for offensive comments attached to the images. Because while it's illegal to share images, it's not a crime to create or ask others to create them. That's what campaigners want to change.
I became suicidal and I wasn't able to trust those closest to me because I had been betrayed by my best friend.
The government says new legislation outlawing the generation of AI nudes is coming next year. But for campaigners like Jodie and Callie, it can't come soon enough. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
And if you've been affected by that story, you can get support from the Samaritans. Call 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org. Murderers who kill their partners are to face tougher sentences as part of the government's plans to halve violence against women and girls. The Law Commission is to carry out a review of homicide law and how murderers are sentenced, following concerns about inconsistencies in the criminal justice system. Our social affairs correspondent Becky Johnson has more.
This was Joanna Simpson, as her friends like to remember her, but she was facing escalating abuse from her husband. Their marriage broke down, and one evening in 2010, after returning their children, Robert Brown killed Joanna. He bludgeoned her to death with a hammer at her home in Berkshire before burying her body in a pre-dug grave. But he was cleared of her murder and only convicted of manslaughter after the trial heard he'd been under stress due to their divorce. The campaign by her friends and family has helped drive the review of homicide law that's been announced.
It was devastating when we heard the not guilty verdict in the murder trial. And, you know, Robert Brown was effectively got away with murder. Absolutely devastating. This wasn't a one-off. It happens all the time, particularly in domestic homicide. And it is a fundamental problem with our murder, manslaughter laws, with our sentencing and with the procedures. And it's all three of those that came together to result in the outcome that we now have to live with forever, and so do her children.
There'll be tougher sentences for jealous ex-partners who kill and murderers who strangle their victims as part of a crackdown on violence against women. And this review will look broadly at the partial defences available to killers to avoid murder convictions. Paranoid schizophrenic Valdo Calacane took a knife onto the streets of Nottingham, stabbing his victims at random, killing Grace O'Malley Kumar, Barnaby Webber and Ian Coates. Their families remain angry that a plea of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility meant he didn't face trial.
You're in a world of pain already when this type of tragedy happens, but the layer upon layer of extra trauma that this has caused us all by knowing that justice hasn't been served and that we've been failed, but most importantly, Barney, Grace and Ian have failed. And do you know what? This will happen again if it doesn't change.
Some believe reform should lead to the introduction of different degrees of murder.
Splitting the offence of murder into different categories. First-degree murder, when it's intended to kill. Second-degree murder, intended to cause serious harm, or a partial defence, like a mental defence. The public would understand what we're doing in our courts in this country with regard to murder and why people get the sentences that they do.
Joanna's friends fear that would lead to fewer convictions for first-degree murder and hope for more widespread reform so more families get the justice they need. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
The outgoing Archbishop of Canterbury has apologised after being accused of making light of safeguarding failures in the Church of England. Mr Welby made his final speech in the House of Lords yesterday and was criticised after his references to a 14th century beheading prompted laughter in the chamber. Survivors of abuse and the bishop say his speech trivialised a serious issue. An alternative healer has been jailed for 15 years following the death of a diabetic woman. 71-year-old Danielle Carr-Gom died in October 2016 after she stopped taking insulin while taking part in a slapping therapy workshop. Hong Chi Chiao was convicted of manslaughter by gross negligence in July. Network Rail says a major fault which caused a nationwide disruption to trains today has now been fixed. Drivers found their radio systems were failing to start up automatically when trains left depots. Trains across the network had to start their journeys later because of the fault, leading to knock-on delays and cancellations. The Princess of Wales has made a rare public appearance with her family. She joined William and their children at Westminster Abbey as she continues her gradual return to public life after completing her cancer treatment. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports.
It's an event that's become a symbol of everything that matters to her. The princess already at Westminster Abbey to meet the rest of the family, guiding Charlotte, Louis and George towards the kindness tree to add their own messages of thanks to those who've supported them this year. She didn't really need to explain to us why she'd chosen the themes of love and empathy. William has already described how brutal this year has been. Meeting some of the performers, she admitted it hasn't been the year she expected.
I didn't know this year was going to be the year that I've just had.
The unplanned.
The unplanned, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think lots of people this year have had such challenging times.
But she wanted this to be a celebration, the princess explaining how a ballet performance had become a family secret.
Louis knew about the dancers I was talking about over tea. Ballet dancers, exactly. And he said, what's the secret? I said, Louis, can you keep a secret? Because I wanted to be a surprise for Charlotte.
And it's been every year, I think, but we're doing well. We're doing really well.
Sir Chris Hoy, who recently announced his own cancer diagnosis, was among the 1,600 in the congregation, along with D-Day veterans and those who've done so much to help others. Like Liv Bowditch, who writes anonymous letters to cancer patients, including the princess.
I wrote to her to say, I really hope you're all right, and I understand this is a really difficult process for you, and I really hope that in a world that can be so loud, you get some quiet and just spend time with your family and really process this in the way that you need.
Ellie Chalice won gold in swimming at the Paris Paralympics and was here to say thanks to her own family.
I've had a lot of support from my dad and my two sisters, and I couldn't have done any of this without them. Supporting me through surgeries and taking me to training and turning up to my competitions to support me. So to be here tonight and to see all these people all coming here for one big reason, I think is really special.
Her public engagements may have been rare this year, but we have heard a lot from the princess about what really matters to her and what her priorities are in a year where she has been more open and spoken more personally than she ever has before. These pictures were released from inside. We'll have to wait to see the rest on TV on Christmas Eve. We don't know what next year is going to look like for the princess and her public engagements. This Christmas, one for them to reflect on a year where family has meant the world. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Westminster Abbey.
And that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, I'm joined by the CEO of Total Politics Group, Mark Wallace, and the Daily Mirror columnist, Susie Boniface. And among the stories we're going to discuss, this on the front of the Eye. Its headline: Labour drops NHS pledge to cut A&E waiting times to 4 hours. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.